Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. And today's episode is taking place just as the FBI and the Justice Department has released, I'm not even sure I should call it the redacted version of the affidavit. We were lucky to get the title page. But in any event, I have a wonderful guest today, a great man, a great patriot. One of the main reasons Donald Trump became president of the United States, one of the main reasons he should have been president of the United States again, and probably the person who I believe, and this is my personal opinion, so nobody can fight with me, I believe that he understands the Donald Trump base and the Donald Trump revolution, which is going to carry on for as long as the Reagan or the Roosevelt revolution. I believe he understands it better than anyone. But that's my opinion, and of course, it's shared by many, and then there are always other people that have a different opinion. But the first thing I want to ask him is, when I saw the information today about Zuckerberg and his admission that he received calls from the White House, basically pushing him in the direction of the massive censorship in 2020 of the hard drive that Steve and I and several others were trying to get out. It said to me, this is all the government action that they've been talking about prevents this from being a violation of the First Amendment. You know, when you say these people censor, nobody disagrees they censor. We all know they censor. The answer is, does it violate the First Amendment? Well, it's not government action, say the lefty communists. Well, the fact is, when the government is involved as an agent in any way at all of a sudden it becomes government action. That's been the law of the United States for 100 years. Well, they just blew it. I mean, they just admitted it. And of course, Steve and I always knew this. Steve, what did you think of today's revelations about Zuckerberg? And of course, they aren't today's. It seems to me this has been known for some time, hasn't it?
Well, I don't think it was known at this level. And quite frankly, I think it was a shocking admission by Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast. Rudy, look. The nation, I don't think, fully understands the heroism of yourself and Bob Costello and Bernie Kerik and the guys around you.
Yeah, Steve Bannon too,
of which I was a small part.
No.
To release the tapes, to release the Hunter Biden laptop from hell, and you see right here where you have Zuckerberg. Remember, he was approached by the FBI, according to him. The FBI went out of their way to suppress this, and now we know from Grassley that they actually approached the Senate, had a briefing in August of 2020 where they said it was Russian disinformation. The FBI knowingly lied to Zuckerberg, knowingly lied to the Senate, knowingly tried to suppress this. They had this hard drive, they had this laptop from December of 2019. They had it almost for 9 months. You and I and other members of the team were able to ascertain relatively quickly that this was not Russian disinformation. This was actual fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were able to confirm it. We were able to confirm it on with people that know the Chinese Communist Party very well and the documentation. And so, no, this shows you. I think Breitbart had a poll the other day, referred to a poll, 79% of voters would have changed their vote on Biden if they had known the level of the content of the laptop from hell that they know today. So this is a massive revelation, and it's going to change. I think it's going to be one of the main articles of impeachment of Joe Biden.
Well, it should be. I mean, because it's almost like, I guess in the law we call it surplusage or redundancy to argue that it was stolen at the ballot box. It was stolen before we got to the ballot box. This was as big a fraud as the election fraud. To withhold, there's probably never been more relevant information about a presidential election, right?
By the way, it's not the Hunter Biden perversion and his sexual proclivities and all the perversions, quite frankly, with his family members. Let's be brutally frank about it. It's not that, as bad as that is. It is the direct compromise of the guy running for president, Joe Biden, and the Biden crime family, Biden's brothers and others, direct compromise with senior level officials and senior level intelligence assets. And as Hunter Biden himself says, one of the senior spies in the Chinese Communist Party It's all there. This is about the compromise. You had a compromised Manchurian
Wow.
candidate running that the American people had to know. American people deserve to know what the information is. I got to tell you, I believe you're going to see at least a dozen FBI officials, including Ray, go to prison over this. This is treason. This is nothing short of treason. They knew exactly what these documents were. They knew exactly who the Chinese Communist Party members were. They knew exactly how the Bidens had been compromised financially. Right? Had nothing to do with Hunter's drug problem, his sexual depravity, none of that. This had 100% that our existential threat to our nation, it had compromised a political candidate, and the American people deserve to know that information on a timely basis. The agents that suppressed this had to go all the way up to the top. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to be, I thought the invasion of the southern border was always going to be the first article of impeachment. I may be now convinced that it's going to be this, but I predict now you're going to see a dozen FBI officials go to jail over what we've just learned in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, once you look at the hard drive calmly, with a little period of time to analyze it, the crimes that emerge from it, from the point of view of having been a professional prosecutor, are extraordinary. And the level of proof, Steve, is extraordinary. You don't get proof like that in the normal cases that are being tried in federal court right now. You don't get a son saying, for 30 years, I gave my father 30% of my income and I paid for all the expenses of the family. And then, of course, all that income is tied up with buying his influence. So it answers the question that perennially was asked, why would anybody give money to Hunter Biden? Hunter tells you, to bribe his father. Then you find $31 million coming from our biggest enemy, China. I don't think you'd even have to prove that was for in a prior era to impeach a president. Someone raised this question to me a long time back, and when we were trying to get it out, they said, what if Kennedy or Reagan, during that long Cold War, got even $1 million from Russia that they couldn't explain or wouldn't explain? Would they have been impeached, even by their own party? I said, you're damn right they would have been. Don't you think?
Rudy, look, your expertise, not just as being one of the storied prosecutors in the history of American law and the Justice Department, and putting away the five families, the mafia in New York, putting away Mike Milken and the mob that was running Wall Street during the Gordon Gekko era. But you also have a very sophisticated understanding of national security and clearances. What you did, the team did from, I guess, basically from July until it was released in October with the New York Post and then subsequently on War Room and others, it was nothing short of heroic. And the nation, I think in a storied career that you've had, this will go down as one of the most important things you've ever done. Because you went out on a limb and you were able to analyze this quickly. People don't realize the level of work and detail that you put in just for the American people, not for Donald Trump, but to make sure the American people know exactly what's. And we have people, and this is not a rogue FBI anymore. These are not rogue. This is not rogue agents. This is how they operate.
Yeah, this is the upper level. This is basically the Washington main office. I would describe this as the Washington main office of the FBI. You know how companies have a main office and then they have 50 sub-offices? The main office is completely corrupt. Might extend to the Washington office because it's so close. I will tell you, it does not extend to the New York office.
Audience understand, the FBI actually took possession, had possession of essentially the same documentation, in December of 2019. This was not a week later. This was not 2 weeks later. This was almost 9 months later. They actively conspired to suppress this information, and now we know that they went to the Senate. What Grassley and Johnson are saying, they actually went over to the Senate and briefed senators in a briefing in August and lied, bald-faced lied.
Yeah, and then participated in a very, very amateurish, but still successful because they own the press, attempt to make it Russian disinformation and accuse us of being Russian agents and accused Senator Johnson and Senator Grassley of being Russian agents. Based on indicia.
You may say it was amateurish, but the people they're dealing with are amateurs too. Zuckerberg is totally naive. They approached Zuckerberg. So although it was amateurish, they talked Twitter and Facebook suppressed the New York Post story. The reason the New York Post story didn't get as much coverage is that they basically kicked him off Twitter, I think, immediately, and they suppressed it on Facebook.
Yeah, extraordinary. The oldest newspaper in America.
This is going to be a scandal figure than Watergate. And what you're seeing in Mar-a-Lago today is a offshoot.
Yes.
This is a fruit of the poison tree, and the poison tree goes all the way back to your investigations in Ukraine, and all the investigation of this goes back to Durham, goes back to Crossfire Hurricane. This is all of a piece, right? It's just different aspects.
Yes. This is Act 3. This is Act 4 or 5.
It's going to be one of the greatest scandals in American history.
I call this Act 4. Act 4 of the framing of Donald Trump. It begins with Hillary putting up the $1 million to create the phony Russian collusion. It continues with the completely phony rendition of the conversation with Zelensky, totally trying to suppress the hard drive, fixing the election, and now this, pretending or trying to make J6 into an insurrection, the only insurrection where no one carried a gun except the gun that was used to kill Ashley Babbitt, that they ignore completely. I mean, and it's all the same people. It's the same. What I don't understand, Steve, is how the American people, the ones that continue to remain to believe it, it's the same group of liars, and then it's the same group of people telling the truth. We keep getting vindicated. We keep getting with the same people who get vindicated all the time.
I think they're getting more desperate, and this is why I'm glad to the audience. I'm glad I'm doing the podcast today, because I was going to call you anyway for your sage advice. Rudy, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't pretend to be one. And I'm certainly not a criminal prosecutor or criminal defense lawyer. But when I saw that today, that affidavit today, understanding how the FBI has lied consistently or withheld information from judges on the FISA warrants, how Garland had the gall, and the FBI had the gall to redact that and put it out to the American people. It's an insult to people's intelligence. And what I'm furious about is how we're playing this whole charade now. They send this document. Now, look, you're a prosecutor. Maybe you see more there than I do.
No. I see.
I'm saying the whole thing's redacted. You don't get it.
You know what I'm doing, Steve, while you're talking to me, because I'm playing, and I'll have them put it up on the screen. I'm just flipping on a computer through it to show people that there are more things redacted than left in it. When you do that, it's an insult to give it out.
As a prosecutor, tell me.
I wouldn't have given this out as a prosecutor. I wouldn't have been embarrassed giving out a document that's more redacted than it has text. Look at this. Page after all the key pages are redacted. There's no reason why they don't give you. One of the main things you have to do with a search warrant is justify why you're breaking into a man's home or a woman's home. There are many other ways of getting documents, all of which are the ways Americans usually did it. This is what the British troops used to do, barge into your house. So we want you to justify. There's nothing here justifying it, or it's crossed out. There'd be no damage to national security to explain. Usually the thing would be there was evidence he was running away with the documents, or there was evidence he was burning the documents. Or I might, to be cute, I would say there's evidence that he was bleach whitening his the computers, like Hillary. But there's nothing of that here. The damn things were just sitting there. They didn't like where they were sitting. And they had already approved where they were sitting, and they had already added extra security. There's not a single stitch of evidence that Trump was going to do anything bad to these things. So in that case, you issue like they did to you and me, you issue a subpoena. This was all, I mean.
Rudy, they had a grand jury. They came to his house in June. He gave it, by the way, after already shipping 15 boxes, which Tom Fitton said they never should have done, because this is a discussion between the National Archives and the Presidential Library, presidential records, and there's no enforcement provision. Tom Fitton argues he never should have sent the first 15 boxes. Number two, They had a grand jury. They came to Mar-a-Lago again, and President Trump met them. They took some, I think, additional, or made some recommendations, took some additional documents. And President Trump, at the end, my understanding is that he said, hey, if anything else comes up, come to me directly, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, typical. I wasn't involved in this, but you and I can almost hear the conversations in our mind's ear, right? You know how he is. Got any trouble? Come to me. I'll straighten it out. And he would have. He did nothing to these to suggest that he wanted to hide them. He didn't put them in a strange place. He didn't cross them out. He didn't tear them up. Right? He let them come and take the first 15 without going to court and battling it. He let them come and look at them again and go through them and say they were satisfied with the security, except could you please put another lock on? And then when they put a lock on, they took a picture of it and sent it back. And the agent said, great. So, I mean, I've been over this with Alina and with Christina Bobb. And how about what they did to them? First of all, they asked if they could accompany the agents. Normally, in a case like this, the agent says yes. After all, you're in control of the person. They can't do anything. And all you're going to do over an hour, and they did not 9 hours, you're going to get information out of them. They're going to start talking. I mean, I'd fire these guys for not doing that. Why didn't they want them along? And why didn't they want it photographed? Nowadays, the police want everything photographed. This is the only police action in America in the last 2 years that hasn't been photographed. They didn't want it photographed, and they didn't want these two lawyers along, one of whom is a Marine, and they can't trust her. Finally, Steve, I'm going to give you the one that makes this whole thing completely.
Rudy, last thing though. When they're in there, supposedly in the affidavit for which we can't see is redacted to do this presidential records, whatever this nonsense is, they take his passports. The president of the United States has a diplomatic passport that's active, and an FBI agent took it, and you know that guy had to call the Home Office. We need to get to the chain of command of who authorized that passport to be taken. This is an outrage, and the American people should be outraged.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Steve.
Ransacking. This is like the Visigoths ransacking Rome.
Well, it's like the general warrants that the British used in 1720 and 1730 and 1740 that led to the Fourth Amendment in the first place. The idea of the Fourth Amendment is you can't get a search warrant saying, I want to search all of Steve Bannon's home or all of Rudy Giuliani's home. You got to have a specific thing or things you're looking for. The evidence of his money laundering, his bank accounts, or in my case, they wanted my electronics. They didn't take my notes, I will say that. They didn't take my passport. They took electronics. Of course, the joke is they didn't take Hunter Biden's hard drive. They didn't only take my electronics, they took colleagues' electronics to determine if they were colleagues. But they stuck to the four corners of the affidavit, and it took 3 hours. This took 9 hours. And they took things that had nothing to do with the affidavit. And the reason it's phony as hell is this thing was so important, the magistrate gave him 11 days to do it. Can you imagine my going into court saying I got to execute a warrant on Tony Salerno in order to get the implements of the murders that he did? And the magistrate said, how much time you want? Give me a couple of weeks. The magistrate would say, I'm not going to give it to you at all because this isn't important to you, pal. This is an extraordinary, breaking into someone's home in America is an extraordinary thing. We don't break into people's homes. That's why we have a Fourth Amendment. That's why we had a revolution, damn it. So a good judge would say, 11 days, you want to put 11 days here? Get out of here. Come back when you have a real reason. So then he gives them 11 days. Well, just in case it was a mistake, they take 3 days off. They take 3 days off. They take the weekend off in Palm Beach.
It's a lie it was so urgent. They had to go down. Garland, says he plays Hamlet for 3 weeks. They asked for 11 days, and they finally go to the magistrate. They then take 3 days. There was no urgency. And there's still in any inventory, as you know from the classifications. Nuclear secrets are classified under Q. There's no Q document. There's no listing in any inventory. There was anything related to nuclear that was labeled Q, which would be the high security, would be like SCI, right? Regarding the nuclear.
No, absolutely.
Nothing mentioned in this at all.
100%.
By the way, you know how they overclassified. This stuff is always overclassified. The president has 100%, 100% ability to declassify what he wants to declassify when he wants to declassify it. And there's no other branch of government has any say-so in it when the president wants to do it.
Has there ever been even the suggestion of criminal investigations of presidents when you deal with things like this? You know, Clinton lost a code, and other presidents have had these disputes over papers, and Biden has never returned it.
In the archives of presidential life. No, it's normal course of business. No, it's administrative. They're using this because they need to somehow charge Trump with a crime. They can't beat him at the polls. Biden's collapsing. The Federal Reserve chairman came out today and just basically confessed this thing is so screwed up that they're going to have to jack interest rates and pull back the economy because inflation's out of control because of the direct action of the illegitimate regime of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not the president of the United States. He's an illegitimate pretender. It's an open secret. Everybody knows it. And what they're trying to do is become a banana republic and start
this
to
is
lock
why
up
they
their
want
opposition.
Steve Bannon. This is why they're going after you, Steve. This is why they're afraid of you. Now, give me some political wisdom. What happened on Tuesday? The liberal press says that the red wave is over.
Yeah, this is what happened. It's very simple. And those areas that were not carried by MAGA. And by the way, we swept the school boards. We swept the school boards in Florida with the Moms for Liberty, the MAGA moms that are coming, right? Just like we swept Texas. In this race in New York State, which is kind of, they kept Trump out of it. Anytime the Republican establishment keeps Trump away, the MAGA voters are not going to show up. You got to take the Youngkin situation where MAGA was able to work with the moms and have an overwhelming victory. If Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell want to keep Trump out of the races, you're not going to win those races. Right now, I'm feeling good. We're going to pick up a minimum of 30 to 40 seats in the House.
Good.
And I think we could pick up 70. I think we could pick up 4 or 5 Senate seats. But Trump has to be fully engaged. If McCarthy and McConnell think they can do it themselves, they're wishful. And quite frankly, that's why the war room's on the road all the way virtually up to November. We may spend a little bit of October back in D.C., but we're on the road from now to Election Day, going throughout the country to rally.
Well, any way I can help you, Steve, you know I'm 100% committed.
You are a hero. Everywhere I go, I spent the weekend at the summit with Mike Lindell out in Springfield, Missouri. And the one question I got, you got to get Rudy back on the show more. I'm telling you, people are saying, where's Rudy? So I said,
I like this district.
Building his media empire, but we're going to get him back on.
Well, you know, this district in New York was a Trump district. I mean, if you're talking about maybe a heavy Biden district where we're okay, maybe Trump isn't the number one guy, but this is a Trump district. You bring Trump to that district, and he goes there for the.
Molinaro is part of these things. No, they kept him at length. Now, Carl Palladino is a different situation. I think, and I hate to say this, but I think Palladino got terrible advice from the people around him. It was a miserably run campaign.
Yes,
He never really took the fight to people. He never really did the media play he should have done. Carl should have won that nomination, and I think there's just complete incompetence.
Different man than ran 8 years ago. They thought the same guy that ran 8 years ago, the firebrand, was going to run this year, and he stayed home, which always changes an election.
This is what the consultants do. They don't want Trump to come in with the Molinaro race. They want Trump to stay out of a Trump district, or which should be a Trump district, and MAGA doesn't show up because they get no interest in supporting what they think is a rhino. And then when Carl's up there running against a rhino, their whole thing is keep Carl, don't let Carl be Carl. Hey, if he's going to run, he's going to run. And you got to back the guy's play. Carl Palladino should have been everywhere. He should have been the Carl of old, and he would have won going away. Got terrible advice, and quite frankly, got picked off by the very inept GOP chairman of New York State, which, as you know, I don't think much of the Republican Party in New York State, the official.
No, I don't either. And I see so many opportunities against Hochul. that are being squandered. Although, I support Zeldin and I would like to see him win. And I think it's almost critical that he wins. The fire just isn't there.
But let me say something.
The case against Hochul is
about the opposition. Joe Biden went out and gave a speech last night that called MAGA a bunch of fascists. He had a private fundraiser in Bethesda with all the fat cat, woke, corporatists and hedge fund guys in Washington, D.C., where he said that, the MAGA is the worst thing in the world, that fascism, the worst people in the world. And then Hochul comes out and says she wants all of MAGA in New York, 5.4, she wants them all to move to Florida. As if New York hasn't been.
Yeah. I mean, the place would go broke if we all moved. We're the ones paying the taxes, Steve. We're the guys paying the taxes. What is she, crazy?
No, she's not. No, she's not crazy. This is what they. This is what Rudy. No, this is what they think. They detest MAGA. They detest everything you stand for. So any political consultant that gets in there and says, "No, we don't want Trump to come in here and." Because they're afraid of offending a few suburban moms. So the suburban moms are so angry about the schools that Trump's not going to be a problem. And so all of these are consultant-led defeats. The consultants didn't let Trump into the Molinari race. He didn't embrace MAGA. He lost. In a Palladino, they said, just go to ground and run from your home. And that's just, you're not going to win that way.
Let me ask you one last thing, Steve, because I know my audience will be interested in this. How about your case? Where does it stand now? That complete atrocity of a dispute over privilege. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I've got great lawyers, Rudy, and they're filing appeals on constitutional issues about executive privilege, about the attorney-client relationship. The FBI took all Bob Costello's emails. I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer, and as you know, I never try to pretend to play one. I've got a great legal team. The jury, given the information they had, I respect their opinion. I respect the jury's decision. Given the information they had, I couldn't even put on a defense. And so, that we're going to file an appeal, I think, on 6 or 7 counts. And, we'll go with the process. I have great lawyers that are working on it right now. And, it's just part of the process. I'll be honest. I spend zero time on that. I've got lawyers that do it. I am focused on 2 things: bring down the Biden regime and the administrative state with it, and the Chinese Communist Party, and that keeps me full up 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, your lawyers are doing a good job, and I think people should realize you've got to be one of the first cases I ever heard of where a man wasn't allowed to give a defense. You weren't allowed to give. How are you going to win? It's like.
The judge actually said that in the pretrial. He goes, my lawyer says, well, look, you've taken away all our defenses. And the judge goes, that's right. And I think they wanted me to go nolo contendere right then. I said, no, let's just go through the process. But the judge in court agreed with my lawyer that he took away all the defenses. So
I hope they don't do this.
We'll see how it plays out.
I hope they don't do this to the Yankees in the World Series, not let them bat. Okay. Steve, God bless you.
It's always a great honor. And
God bless you. And I got to tell you.
What you did and put your reputation on the line. Put your sacred honor on the line. Everything you did on the Biden, the Hunter Biden laptop is going to go down in history. In your great career, as one of the most important things you ever did, because people don't realize you took a huge risk at that time. It was your reputation that really got us. It wasn't Costello's, it wasn't Bernie's, it wasn't mine, it wasn't the other members of the team. It was that Rudy Giuliani had gone through this, and I think it shows you that for people who matter and people who really understand how the world works, they totally and completely have 1,000% respect. When Rudy Giuliani says something, you can take it to the bank. And the laptop from hell shows that in spades. You put your entire reputation on the line, and it came out. You did it for the country, and guess what? It was the right thing to do, and history's going to show, because this is only the first chapter of this. This is going to be a massive scandal that's going to be investigated by the House. Eventually, it'll be criminal charges brought.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, and that's where we got to get it, because it can never happen again. And thank you, Steve. You've been really the leader of this movement and the person who got the most sensitive and really most I think complete understanding of it, which is why it's so necessary that you stay involved 24 hours a day. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
And congratulations And congratulations on the show, The War Room. Got to be like one of the biggest on radio and television. Everybody goes to it. God bless you. Well, I think that, of course, is a fascinating interview with one of really the most interesting men of our generation, Steve Bannon. Won a presidency. Maybe won it again. We don't know. We're still working on that. And he's probably going to help win another one. But not just that, he's forged a movement behind Donald Trump that will last beyond Donald Trump, which is enormously important to our country because of the forces of evil that want to take our country away from us. We have now become, I think, fully aware of what the communists have been doing to us since maybe the beginning of the 20th century, or along about the beginning of the 20th century. And this is the antidote to it. So let's take a short break and we'll come back and we'll conclude. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. Welcome back. And before we go back to our interview with Steve Bannon, please let me remind you that in this struggle, the one Steve and I are talking about, which is, one aspect of it, we need allies and we need friends and we need supporters. We got a lot of people against us, but we got one strong one for us, and that's Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative mobile phone company. And it's been on the front lines of many, many of the battles, including the battle in the Supreme Court to vindicate life, to save babies. Also, it's been in the forefront of the battle to protect our rights to defend ourselves, our freedom of religion, so many of the other things that these communist governments, socialist governments, fascist governments, what do you want to call them, when they govern by mandate? Well, Patriot Mobile is a Christian-based mobile phone service, and it is completely sensitive to the economic situation that we're now in, and it has packages for everyone who might now be struggling with Bidenflation. Go to patriotmobile.com/Rudy or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the offer code Rudy, R-U-D-Y, for free activation. If you're a veteran or a first responder, please let them know that, because you're going to get special deals the way you should. Come join our movement. Make the switch today. patriotmobile.com/Rudy. patriotmobile.com/Rudy or call 972-PATRIOT. Well, I could talk to Steve forever, and I'm sure you could. And maybe when we get our premium channel, which will hopefully be shortly, we'll have long ones there where we can talk like sometimes he and I do when we're together for 2 hours and 3 hours and 4 hours. Because you really learn a lot from this man about history, and a lot that I've learned through reading, yes, because I'm an avid reader and have been since my mother made me that way. But I got to say, an awful lot I've learned through talking, too, because I love to talk. Long talks into the night where you go into the derivation of American law and the Roman Empire and the Greek civilization, and you go into morals and religion, and maybe we do some of those long talks in a different format. I'm thinking about it. Also thinking about giving you an opportunity to make telephone calls and being put in a special position so your call will get through, because they're so hard on my radio show. So we may have something on that next week. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Steve. I know it was enlightening. And, here you get to talk to the people who are actually making history. I've looked back over the podcasts of the past, and those podcasts are history. I mean, one day I'm talking to you while the January 6th thing is just actually happening, and I'm getting the information about the killing of Ashley Babbitt as it's happening. So I think this is the place to come to if you want to get around that iron curtain of corrupt silence that they've put around America. The socialists have, the fascists have, the communists have, the anti-Americans have. We crack through it. Steve cracks through it. Others do. Those are the people you should support. Well, come on back next week to support Rudy'sCommonSense.com. Go to RudyGiulianiCS.com. Give me your comments. God bless you. God bless America.